Today it is hello to acclaimed author, international speaker, and transformational longevity, health, and happiness coach, Tracy Herbert. A seriously incredible woman who has overcome many serious challenges, and I mean really serious challenges, despite age and diagnosis, and who is on a mission through her books and her lectures and her coaching to convince others that they too can take charge of their health. So you can imagine how delighted I was to come across Tracy. So welcome, Tracy, and I actually believe you are just back from yet another adventure. But before we get into that, can I ask you to just introduce yourself in your own words, maybe where you are in the world, what you do and why, and what is this life adventure all about?
Well, it's so great to be here, Julie. I'm Tracy Herbert, and I am so thrilled to be here and being able to speak to your audience and give people hope, because without hope, we have nothing. And at the age of 17, I was fighting for my life in a hospital bed and ICU. And the doctor walks in and he puts his hands on his hips and he says, "Young lady, you've got juvenile diabetes. You're going to die in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're going to go blind. You're going to have your legs amputated." I mean, he went on and on and on. "You're never going to be able to have children." And he turned around and he walked away. And I thought, hello, I have questions. 17. And throughout my 2 weeks in the hospital, no one gave me hope. I mean, nobody in the medical field gave me hope. And my journey started at that moment because I thought, hey, wait a minute, time out. If I don't have hope, how am I going to survive this? And so I started researching everything I could at the age of 17. Again, no internet. I would go into a medical school library and I started researching everything I could about how to live healthy, despite now they call it type 1 diabetes, but instantly you have to be on shots. And I was taking up to 3 shots at that time at 17. And then I became 9 shots a day.
My goodness.
And I started realizing that, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And I was in a state of depression because I'm 17. Well, I went to the movie theater and all my friends were getting, the stuff you get at the movie theater, the soft drinks and the popcorn and candy and everything. And I walked up to the concession stand clerk and I asked for a cup, just a small cup, so I could go get a drink out of the water fountain, because nobody wants to be different at 17 or at 65, like I am, and it was so weird because she said no. And I said, "I'll be glad to pay for it." And we didn't have bottled water back then. We didn't have diet soft drinks back then.
Yeah.
And she said no. And I ran out of that movie theater at 17, screaming and crying all the way home. And I got in bed and I said, "Tracy, you've got 2 choices. You can be better or you can be bitter. What are you going to choose?" And at that instant, my life changed. And I said, "I'm going to be better." And I've strived. Am I perfect? No, of course not. Nobody is. But I've strived from that moment on every day to wake up. And now I'm so excited because not only have I outlived my life expectancy, but by way far, but all the doctors ask me when I speak to them or anywhere, and they say the same thing is, "How are you still alive and what are you doing?" Because very few people have diabetes and no complications. And I not only have no complications, but I do something to celebrate my diagnosis every decade, because life is too short to be sitting in a rocking chair and saying my life is over, no matter the age or no matter the diagnosis. That's exactly where I've been.
What a woman, because I mean, we can say, at 50 stuff, we have a choice and we can, choose to embrace it. And there's a silver lining and everything and whatever. But when you're 17, right, when you're 17, you're a young person with your whole life in front of you. You want to be, as you said, part of it. You want to do all the crazy, the drinking or the whatever stuff that goes with it. And I mean, to be given that sort of diagnosis, I think it could have, gone very much in a different way. So, okay, so it was basically it's a mindset thing then, right?
Correct, exactly.
You had a choice. You couldn't change the fact that you had diabetes, one, and you couldn't, what the medical profession thought would be your life expectancy and all of that. But you did have a choice to what you were going to make of it.
Exactly.
So Was it only a mindset thing? Was it only that you decided, okay, I can be better or bitter, which is a very good one?
No, it goes much further into detail than that. When I gave birth to my first child, the
So you did
doctors were
have
all amazed.
children.
Not only do I have 2 children, but I have 6 grandkids. And so the doctors were all shocked when I went through. I had a normal delivery. I had a normal pregnancy. Well, normal pregnancy is, in my terms, probably most people would think you were crazy because I was in the hospital so much in the emergency room because of blood sugar issues. But
Right.
I have 2 healthy kids. They're 40 and 38 now, but they're so healthy. All my grandkids are healthy. And I'm just like, if I would have listened to those doctors,
Yeah.
I would have not had my 2 great kids, nor would I be a grandmother. But
Right.
so it all, to me, and I started thinking about all this as my 40th anniversary of my diagnosis came up. And again, I celebrate. I don't look at it as a curse. So many people say, oh, and I'm like, hey, it changed my life for the better. I wouldn't give up. And now I'm always about providing hope for people because at 17, I didn't get hope. And so my doctor, before he retired, he said, you need to write a book. And I'm like, I'm not an author. And he said, no, Tracy, you need to write a book because I tell people about your case all the time. And they're like, no, no, no. But he said, you as a layman, you need to start telling people what you do.
Yes.
And I was shocked that actually I was very blessed that my book did so well because the same thing, doctors were buying my books to give to their patients.
Right.
But 3 M's, if you don't hear anything else today, Julie, or your listeners or anything, 3 things. It's called my 3M formula. And it's so simple. Mind, you have to have the right mindset and realize you can do anything, no matter your diagnosis, no matter setbacks, no matter your age. Because when you have the right mindset, you can start telling yourself, oh, I can do this. I might have to do things a little differently than other people, but I can do it.
Or you might need to get help, or you might need to get more resources, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Yeah,
exactly. And now it's even easier because we have the internet and we can do, now if you do research to learn things, you got to be very, very careful because there's a lot of snake oil salespeople on the internet trying to sell you something that will cure diabetes or cure whatever you have. So that I'm always very careful. Make sure it's quality information. And then the second M of my 3M formula is mouth. We have to learn to eat to live. Don't live to eat. And when I realized that in my 30s, so I was about 20 years into my diagnosis and my blood sugars were doing this up and down. And I thought, okay, Tracy, go back to the drawing board. What are you doing different that I shouldn't be doing? And I was eating from Fort Worth, Texas in the United States. And I started eating what most Americans eat for breakfast. And my blood sugars would go super high.
Which is what then? What do you eat?
Cereal, processed foods, things like that, things that are not healthy. And so my blood sugars would go super high and then they'd go so low, I wouldn't even know my name.
So you're also on a roller coaster yourself, which must be extremely exhausting as well.
Exactly. But everybody does this, not just people with diabetes. And so I went back to the drawing board and went back to my researcher hat, putting it on. And I sat there and I said, okay, what do I do? And then I started reading what people around the world were doing. And so many people were eating salads and like salmon for breakfast. And when people think I'm crazy to this day, but in my 30s, I started eating stuff that did not spike my blood sugar. And then didn't make it drop. So I'm pretty much flatlined on my blood sugar.
But isn't that incredible? Wouldn't you think that the medical profession at least would give some advice to their patients about, what they should or should not be eating?
It's so sad because, Julie, what happens, at least in the United States, so many of our medical schools teach the important things, how to keep people alive and things like that. But they don't really spend any time on nutrition. And when you think about it, think about the time you go out for lunch and you eat something that's, high glycemic, which makes your blood sugar spike. And then a couple hours later, you're exhausted and you need a nap, or you reach for a soft drink, which is horribly bad for you too.
Keep it up. Yeah.
Because you got to go up and down, but then when you start eating the way that I've trained myself to eat, and so many people around the world, is that when you start eating this way, at first it may feel weird, but then you start having more energy, which is why I have more energy in my 60s than
I
I did
can
in my
tell
30s.
you're full of energy.
But because when you put junk in your body, you're going to have junk in your body forever. And so when you start making that transition, and it's hard, I'm not going to say it's easy, but when you have the right mindset and you keep telling yourself, okay, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going. And then you go to restaurants and people think you're really weird when you spend so much time talking to servers about how is this cooked? What do I, what can I get? Can you exchange this? But then the third M of my 3M formula, we've already talked about the mind. We talked about the mouth. The third one is move. We've got to get off our chairs and move more. I use a standing desk. I exercise every single day because not only is it good for my diabetes, not only is it good for my heart, but it's good for aging. And that's why people are like, oh, I'm too old. I'm like, you're in your 50s. You can't say you're too old. And that's why for my 40th anniversary of my diagnosis, okay, so again, I celebrate. So I was diagnosed at 17, and for my 40th anniversary, I guess you're pretty good at math. I was 57 years old. I got on my bicycle at San Francisco, California, at the Pacific Ocean, and I rode my bicycle to New York City to the Atlantic Ocean. And I did it to show people that no matter what you're struggling with, no matter what you're going through, you can do it. And more importantly, I wanted to provide hope because again, without hope, we have nothing. Without our health, we have nothing. So every day I would get on my bicycle and people said, how did you do it? And I said, well, if I would have thought leaving the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, oh no, I've got 3,527 miles, or I think that's about 5,676 kilometers. I would have been overwhelmed.
Yes.
But every day, just like life, whatever you do in life, exactly. I would get on my bike, just like we did as kids. I'm going for a bike ride. And I'd get on my bike and I'd start riding. And I met some of the kindest, most pleasant people in the world along the route. And it was such an inspiration to me to meet so many people that were encouraging, and they would give me water on the side of the road. If I changed my tire, one couple stopped and changed my flat tire. And I thought, well, you're so nice. I mean, so, things like that. But the movement, people say, well, I couldn't do that. You could do whatever you want.
But that's it. We're limited by what we think, and we're limited by fear in a way, aren't we? I remember when I was learning how to be a coach, there's this example, I can't remember his name now, Bannister or something like that, but it was then believed that you couldn't run faster than a mile per whatsoever, that your heart would literally explode, literally is what they thought. And so nobody did. Even the top athletes, that was the limit. Nobody went beyond that. And he decided to prove them wrong. And since him, then we have all of these races, etc. So it's all about the limitations that we are taught, or the self-beliefs that we have. I mean, of course, and I mean, what you're saying is applicable to everyone, as in illness or not illness. It literally is choosing what you want your life to be like within the parameters. Yes, you are diabetes 1, right? But that doesn't mean that you have to indeed just sit on the couch and wait for the end. Within that, you've pushed the boundaries and you're showing to people who are 100% healthy that you severely diagnosed at 17 can do these most incredible accomplishments.
And when you find things you enjoy, you're going to do it over and over again, because people are like, I couldn't ride my bicycle across the United States. And I'm like, well, what do you like to do? And a great example is I met a lady in Sacramento while I was waiting for the light to turn green. And she said, well, I wish I could ride my bike across the city. And I said, well, actually, I'm going to New York City. And I just had that feeling I need to get off my bike and talk to her. So I went over and talked to her, and she was so sad. And she was probably in her mid-30s, but she was morbidly obese. And she was saying, I have to wait for my brother. I live around the block and I can't go home. I have to wait for him. And she was embarrassed. And we just started talking, and the health coach in me came out, and everything I said, she said, I can't do it. And I said, can you go to the end of your driveway? Just walk to the end of your driveway. And her light bulb went off in her mind. She says, I think I can. Yes, I knew I had her. By the time I was, like I said, I was in Sacramento, California, but by the time I got to New York City, I got a message from this lady. And not only had she been walking, but now she had just signed up for her first 5K walk. And she says, I didn't even think about all the weight that's coming off. And she said, I'm not doing anything different except every day saying, what did that lady say on the bicycle? Or what did Tracy say? And I thought, it's not me doing it. It's you doing it. But just little things like that.
But you're
just
lighting the hope. You
Yeah,
are. And I
and-
mean, that's why you're glowing, and that's why you're celebrating as well your anniversary of your diagnosis, because in a way, it has made you a bigger person than you might have become, because you're a woman on a mission. You can see it. I mean, every word that you say is, you are here to show people, yes, you can. Yes, you can be more. Yes, you can run this or lose the weight or be happy or... And I mean, that's what you have made your entire mission about. So that book that you talked about, which one is that?
My first book I wrote, I'm sorry?
You have written 3 books, right?
Yes, yes. My first book is called Diabetes, Tragedy to Triumph. And that's based on what I had discovered over almost 40 years at that time of researching, and everything I had discovered and things that work, mostly about the mindset. I mean, I talked about the mouth and the move, but all the, I call it my 3M formula, kind of like a cog, and all of them have to work together, because if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to get off your couch and go for a walk, or you're going to
be careful about what you put in your mouth, because you'll be eating for comfort, you'll be eating for all sorts of other reasons than nutrition, right?
Yes, yes. So that's why I really, of course, I argued with my doctor, because I said, I can't write. And he said, yeah, you can. He said, look what you've accomplished. And I hadn't even ridden my bike across the country then. So that's why I really put my heart and soul in that. A lot of tears, which surprised me, because I was putting myself back in that hospital bed as a 17-year-old kid. But then I would say, but look at me now. I mean, again, I'm not perfect. Nobody is, right, Julie? I mean, nobody is. But every day I do something. First thing I do in the morning when I get out of bed is, I'm just so thankful for another day of life, because none of us are guaranteed that. So I'm starting off my mind with something positive.
Yes.
I try not to watch a lot of negative things on social media, TV.
Which is harder and harder to do nowadays.
And so little things like that get your day started off right. You know, I listen to a lot of positive podcasts like yours. I love your podcast. And so things like that, you really start believing it can happen. And sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. I don't like to say that very often.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
You know, you can, just like the lady I was telling you about, I call her my friend, in Sacramento, California. She had to fake it to get to the end of her driveway. She had to tell herself, I can do this. And then she stopped and rested. But if she hadn't told herself she could do it, she would never have done it. She would have stayed right where she is. And so that's what it's all about, is doing simple things. I always tell people, small steps equals huge changes, because every day we do something little, and it might just be swapping a donut or a piece of cake for an apple or blueberries, just making that swap. But when you really start making the change, and you really start drinking a lot more water, because most of us don't drink enough water, you know, give up the sugar as much as you can, just because it causes inflammation in the body.
Yeah, it's bad for everyone, right?
And then you talk about older people as we age. People say, well, my joints hurt. And I'm like, do you eat a lot of sugar? Well, yeah. And I'm like, cut back the sugar, cut off the sugar.
Give that a try.
And then people are like, this is so amazing. I mean, it's crazy how things like that, little things like that, we start making changes, and you don't notice it overnight. But in a few weeks, you start saying, wait a minute, I slept better, or I had more energy, things like that.
It's even just to give the benefit of the doubt, isn't it?
Yes,
it's even, you don't need to say, oh, yes, okay, because the problem is, of course, there is a lot out there, you know, all these fads, eat this, and then, oh, no, don't eat that. And you're a bit like, okay, right? And everybody's busy, so we go for convenience. And then there's also all the emotional aspects about why we eat what we eat, you know, what we think we deserve or whatever. But it is all about, you know, saying, well, okay, maybe I'm not 100% sure, but what does it hurt to try, right? And then when you see the results, like you said, you know, when you see that you do have that regained energy, that your joints hurt less, etc. So if you were to define your mission, what exactly is your mission, Tracy?
My mission is to provide hope. And not just to everybody, but to provide hope to people who are willing to accept it. And when you start having hope, then you start making these changes. And so I tell people, I'm a hope and health advocate, because, you know, and I don't train people to run marathons. That's not what I do. I don't train people to lift weights. I help people in their daily walk to be able to just make a change here and there and then start seeing the results. And that's what my mission is. That's what brings me hope. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's what gets you out of bed in the morning. And as you say, it's despite diagnosis and age, because of course we're talking about a 50+ audience. So, you know, before 50s was waiting patiently for more or less the end, right? You maybe started to retire, your kids had left home, you know, you'd be knitting booties on the couch or whatever it was you were doing. It wasn't a creation period. It wasn't a, you know, let's learn something new. You know, whereas nowadays, I mean, the 50s are nothing, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80. There's a lady with me who was lifting weights this morning in this, you know, bodybuilding. She's 80. Yes, she didn't have the same weights as me, but she's the only thing which would not have her there is the mindset and is the, well, why not? You know, if I'm gentle with my body and I listen to what's right, but I do push myself. So what you're saying about hope is something that I find very important. And that's for being who we need to be, whether it's how we treat our bodies, you know, that we live with the idea that we will possibly be here for another 30, 40 years. You know, we're not talking about the last 5. And, you know, there's so much that we haven't yet dared be, because that's what you're proving. You know, at 57, you got on that bicycle, you know, despite all these diagnoses and issues that you have, which are serious ones. We're not just talking about, you know, a little bit of arthritis in my big toe, like I have, you know, when we're talking, this is really serious stuff, but you're just limited by what you believe about those things and what you can and can't do. So you write books, right? You've written 3, right? If I see behind.
Right.
And you have like, I know you have a mailing list because I'm on it, and you send some very clever, practical, inspirational stuff to people, and you coach people as well, right?
Correct. And something I offer, if you're interested and you're struggling with giving up hope and you're thinking, oh, my life, I'm older, I'm over 50 now, or I'm 80 or whatever, I do offer a free resource on my website. Okay. And it's called the Longevity Roadmap. And so it's just simple things that you can do to help you extend your life as long as you can. And, you know, it's not so we can have more years, because that's not what it's about. No. Like you said, we don't want to be, you know, knitting booties on the porch or whatever in a rocking chair, but it's to live as long as you can and have the energy and the health as we can.
Right. It's the quality of the years, right?
Exactly.
It's the quality of the years. It's knowing that we're making the most of it. And I think that for most people, you know, I always say 50s plus, you know, and it'll go on. I mean, I'm going to be 56, but so we're not talking about just 50s. We're talking about upwards. Is, I think, a blessed period to do all of that, because often before, you know, we're maybe for those who are mothers, you know, somehow you always end up going last, and or you're building your career, or, you know, your energy is somewhere else than thinking, you know, what makes me happy, and also the what can I give back, which I'm always bantering on about, because I do feel like you, that sunshine in you, that energy, that getting out of bed, that doing this incredible stuff, and always having more energy to reach out to whoever you meet with your message of hope and can do. It is all linked by that idea of moving forward, of the hope, and that we can all have. It's about now being all that we can be. You know, it doesn't matter that maybe we chose something to study that wasn't right, or maybe the husband that we ended up marrying, you know, now we think, well, maybe I shouldn't have. I mean, I believe in not thinking that way and saying, if I married him, it was a reason, and it was wonderful for the amount of years that we had. And if at some point it's not the right one, then we go with that flow as well. So we actually called this lessons learned from, well, how many kilometers it was, bike trip. What would you say you learned on that trip?
You've got to set goals. You've got to break goals down into smaller goals and short-term goals. You have to have a team, because without a team, people on the side of the road bringing me water or changing my tire, people on social media encouraging me, without a team. And what I'm saying with team is people in your community or people in your corner that's there to cheer for you and there to say, one day I was so exhausted and I got a sweet message from a dear, dear friend of mine. And she said, Tracy, you look tired. I did Facebook Lives in the morning and the evening just because people were wanting to see, you know, where I was and what I was doing, because I had some crazy experiences. But she said, Tracy, you look tired. And I said, you know, I'm really tired. I think this was about Nevada, maybe about 3 weeks in, 2 weeks into my ride. And she said, you need to take a break. take a day off. And I said, oh, I can't. Because of course I had TV appearances along the way. I did a documentary. I wrote another book. And she said, Tracy, listen to me. I love you. Take a day off. And I took that day off. I didn't do anything. And she was so right. But if I hadn't had her in my corner, my community, you know, we're going to fail. And I probably would. Well, I don't know if I would have failed, but it would not have been the experience I had. And I still was able to meet all my TV appearances, all my speaking appearances. So it didn't matter.
No,
but
and it was being nice to yourself. Also, at our age, you know, we
Yes.
also do need to listen to ourselves. You know, we often,
Mhm.
you know, there's always that fine line between moving outside your comfort zone and pushing yourself, but also
Mhm.
being loving to yourself. You know, that if you want to do the other so many thousands of kilometers you have to do, you know, sometimes your body says, you know what, just give me one day, one day to just chill. And that's also wisdom, isn't it?
Yes,
It's also
it is.
knowing the difference between the excuses because we're scared of moving outside our comfort zone and the body saying to you, you know, listen to me, I just need this extra day off. And I mean, all that you're saying applies to everyone, right? Because I mean, the setting the goals is, if we don't know what it is that we want, then we're definitely not going to get it, because you know, you're just aiming at nothing. And to break them down into something small so that it's less overwhelming, and also, I guess, to keep your motivation up as well. Because as you say, if you'd set up off on that trip saying, I have so and so many kilometers, I mean, your entire body and mind would probably have gone, break, are you mad? You know, go back home, don't do this. Whereas you said each day, oh, I'm on my bicycle trip of the day, and each day took you one step closer. And the team is also very true, because I also notice, you know, whether it's in our age group or even younger, sometimes even well-wishing people, as in people who love us, they also want to protect us from something new that we might want to do, right? Especially if we're, you know, wanting to try something new. People say, are you mad? You know, the stability of your career, but I'm miserable there. Or I actually remember somebody, even during my divorce, and a very close friend, saying, but are you mad? You know, you're in this golden cage, you've got everything wonderful, etc. for you. And I said, but if I'm not happy, should I stay just for the safety and the don't rock the boat? I said, maybe I think both he and I deserve something which is better tuned to us. He's a great person, I'm a great person, but sometimes you have to know when to stop and to step back. So Tracy, we've got many things here, so I certainly want people to have a look at your book. So we have Diabetes, Tragedy to Triumph, we have the longevity codes, and what's it, the Ride to Hope?
Ride for Hope.
Hope. And that's about the cycle trip then.
Yes.
And so there you also share some of these. So this 3M, right? This is your methodology that you also coach people through?
Yes. And other things. I mean, we that's the core of everything I do, because that's what I've been doing for, you know, 47 years now. And so that's why it's so important to find something. And, you know, somebody may say, well, 3Ms or 3 is too many. It's not. You take one, and I always start with a mindset, because once we have our mind in the area that it needs to be, like you say, things change. And so you really start working, but that's exactly what I do and people are like, this is going to be so complicated. I mean, I've worked with people that have had to lose 200, 300 pounds, you know, and it's like, no, you don't think about, I have to lose 200 pounds or 300 pounds. You look at, what can I do today to get better for tomorrow,
in the right direction.
I mean, right? Small steps equal big changes. I mean, it's crazy how simple it is. And we try to overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
You know, everybody knows what they need in life.
I mean, they also know what we shouldn't be eating and drinking.
Exactly.
We all know.
We all know. But sometimes you just need a friend to go walk aside with, you know.
Until it becomes a habit, right? Because I guess for you now, the idea of eating all the crap that you used to eat, you would probably hate the idea, you know, and the torture you would want to eat it. It's also super importantly about also believing that we deserve to do the best for our bodies, right? That we deserve to feel good, that we deserve to have a long and healthy and happy life. Because sometimes, I think particularly with women, our wires get a little bit, you know, twisted.
Yep, exactly. Number one, we all want to be super. because we're a woman and we feel like we need to do everything right. And we have to do everything. You know, we don't need to sleep. We need to get laundry done, or we need to get the house cleaned before tomorrow, or whatever that is, make dinner, make lunch. And that's not true. Like you said, I love what you said about self-love. That is so important. The other day I was going to do a long run, and I just thought, you know what, Tracy, that's not what you need today. That's not what your body needs. So I went out, and I actually went in the backyard where we're very, very hot in Texas right now, very hot. And I did a yoga class. I mean, I just did it by myself. And I thought, you know, I was in the sunshine, I was stretching, I was doing my yoga, and it was very hot. And I thought, that's what my body needed.
Right.
And I mean, sometimes you have to take a day off.
Yeah. And without beating ourselves up, right? Without
exactly.
Thinking, there we are. I failed. You know, I can never commit to anything. It's rubbish. It's time that we grow out of that. So, I mean, my last question to you, I guess, Tracy, is, well, what's next?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because I had planned on riding another long distance bicycle ride, and then COVID hit. And so now I'm trying to decide. I really want to do the Camino de Santiago, which is, okay, that's been on my bucket list since I was diagnosed at 17. And so I think I'm working right now on how can I get my insulin? How can I get my medical supplies and do it? Because without insulin, I'm going to die. That's actually my ultimate bucket list goal. And I'm just trying to figure out, how can I do this, but do it safely?
Tracy, thank you very much. If you have one last, or how would you like people to get in touch if they want to know more about your programs, about your mission, about your books?
Well, the best place to go is my website, and it's Tracy, Tracy Herbert, HERBERT.com. That you can find out all sorts of information. I'd even do free calls. Strategy calls is what I call them. I don't like the term strategy, but people understand in the digital world today that what strategy call means, because my goal is to help, even if it's just one person, to help them have hope and to learn a simple tool that they can do. So I'm all about that. But my website's great. I'm all over social media. That's another option. But the most important thing is, don't ever lose hope. Without hope, we have nothing. And remember, we always have two choices, whatever your choice is, and expect setbacks. But you can be bitter, or you can be better. Setbacks do happen. You're going to eat junk food sometimes. Don't beat yourself up. Just change the next meal, not the next day.
Exactly.
Or you don't go for a walk. Okay, no big deal. Go for a walk tomorrow, you know.
Exactly. Tracy, thank you very, very much. You are a very impressive and beautiful person who really embodies what you talk. You know, it's clear that you breathe this. It's not just something that you're teaching. You are it. And for that, I'm very grateful that you are here sharing it with us all today. So good luck. I do hope you get to Santiago. And for the rest of you out there, take note, take hope, and take action. Speak to you all this time next week.